Okay, we start with the topic of converting units. Suppose I wanted to convert 2 minutes into seconds. Well, of course we know the answer, it's 120 seconds. But if it's a little more complicated, then we have to think about it more. But let's take this example, 2 minutes, and convert it into seconds. Well, the strategy is to multiply it by something that equals 1. So all of that equals 1, and it's going to be the number of minutes per second. Now, do you want the minutes to be on top and the seconds on the bottom, or the seconds on top and the minutes on the bottom? Either way, it's actually a true statement, but it may or may not be helpful in terms of converting. So basically the strategy is you want the minutes to cancel out, and you want to remain with seconds. So you want it to be minutes on the bottom and seconds on the top. And then how many seconds are in a minute? Well, we know that there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. All right, so in this case we see that minutes cancel out, and we're left with 2 times 60 equals 120 seconds. So obviously that's a lot of thought to put into something that you know the answer to immediately. But like I say, if it's more complicated, you have to stop and think about it, and it's useful to go through this process. So suppose we wanted to know how many feet are in 2 kilometers. All right, so let's try that one. What did I say? 2 kilometers. Convert 2 kilometers to feet. All right, this one's a little more involved. You can't really just do that in your head immediately. So we start out with 2 kilometers. So the strategy will be, again, to multiply it by something that equals 1, so that we're really just multiplying it by 1 each time, and you end up with something that's identical to 2 kilometers, but because of the units, it's going to end up being in a different form with different numbers. So the first thing will be to convert kilometers to miles. So let's do that one. So for kilometers to miles, now we have that conversion on your equation sheet. We have 1 kilometer equals 0.621 miles. Now let me do it wrong first. Suppose I said 1 kilometer equals 0.621 miles. Okay, why is that wrong? Because you have kilometers on the top and kilometers on the top. So while this is true, it's not going to give you anything useful. If I were to multiply that, I would get 2 divided by 0.621 kilometers squared per mile, which is in the correct units of distance, but it's not going to be useful. So what we want is kilometers on the bottom, miles on the top. Now, the statement is 1 kilometer equals 0.621 miles. So 1 kilometer is 0.621 miles. All right, so that'll get us 2 kilometers converted into miles, and then to convert it into feet, we want to convert miles to feet. So there are 5,280 feet per mile. So we want miles on the bottom and feet on the top. So 5,280 over 1 mile. All right, so let's calculate that. So I get 6557.8, and what are the final units? Feet. And we can see how that works. Kilometers cancel out, miles cancel out, and we're left with 2 times 0.621 times 5280. You don't need to divide by 1, and you're left with feet. All right, so here's a useful example. Let's convert 1 meter per second to miles per hour. And that could help us in the lab when we're dealing with units like meters per second, and you can't relate that to normal daily life. So how many miles per hour is that? Okay, so we start with 1 meter per second, and we want to multiply by something. Now what's going to be the strategy? We want miles on the top and hours on the bottom, so there's going to be a lot more conversion to do. So we can convert meters to feet, and then feet to mile. We know those conversions, and then of course we can do seconds to minute and minutes to hours. So through all of that, we're going to end up with miles per hour. So first let's do meters per feet. So we want meters on the bottom, feet on the top, and how much is it? 1 meter is 3.281 feet. So that's 1 meter is 3.281 feet. And then we have 5280 feet per mile. Remember to use MI for miles and M for meters so you don't get them confused. And I went ahead and put in the number because I already knew that feet was going to be on the bottom and miles was going to be on the top. but sometimes, I start with the units to make sure I get it right. So now we have miles on the top. And what about seconds? Seconds is on the bottom. So whatever we convert it to, we want that to be on the bottom. So we want seconds to eventually go to hours. So you might happen to know that there are 3,600 seconds per hour. Or you can do it seconds to minute, minutes to hour. So let's do it that way. So I'm going to want seconds on top to cancel out that second, and minutes on the bottom. So there's 60 seconds per 1 minute. And then moving along, it's going to be minutes on top and hours on the bottom, and that's 60 minutes per hour. So let's look and see how the units cancel out. Meters, meters, feet, feet, miles. Whoops, miles didn't cancel out. And then let me use a different color for the time. Seconds, seconds, minutes, minutes. So what are we left with? Miles per hour. And that's what we want. So if you calculate it, you get the result 2.24. 2.24 miles per hour. So what we find is that 1 meter per second is 2.24 miles per hour. So that's really like a slow walking speed. So 1 meter per second, just now you can kind of remember that. I mean, first of all, we're doing it just for the exercise of converting units. But I picked this example so that you get a sense of what a meter per second is, if you don't already know it. So 1 meter per second is just kind of like walking slowly down the street. A fast walk might be twice that, 2 meters per second. So when things move at a meter per second, that's just kind of normal, everyday motion. So here's an example you can do. Convert 55 miles per hour to kilometers per hour. So if you're driving at highway speeds, 55 miles an hour, what would it be in a country that uses metric system? So I've given you the answer. So 88.6 kilometers per hour. On their signs, they put 90. So, in Canada, you can go 90. But that's 90 kilometers per hour, which is about 55 miles per hour. So make sure you can get this answer by converting the units properly, and that can be used as practice.